tensions between Israel and Iran continue to rise at a dangerous pace. A stunning revelation has recently emerged. Senior U.S. officials have told media that U.S. President Donald Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to assassinate Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. According to a U.S. official, Trump reportedly told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that assassinating Khamenei was not a good idea. The official said that Israel reportedly had an opportunity to kill the top Iranian leader, but Donald Trump waved them off the plan. The officials did not confirm whether the U.S. president delivered the message himself, but Donald Trump has been in frequent communications with Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu. When questioned about Trump's veto move on the reported assassination plan during an interview, Netanyahu did not directly confirm or deny such reports.
There are so many false reports of conversations that never happened, and I am not going to get into that. I can tell you I think that we do what we need to do. We will do what we need to do. And I think the United States knows what is good for the United States, and I am just not going to get into that.
Now, these comments come as Israel and Iran continue to exchange barrages of missiles. After decades of enmity and a prolonged shadow war through proxies and covert operations, this marks the first time these longtime adversaries have traded direct fire with such intensity. The recent escalation has ignited fears of a prolonged conflict that could engulf the entire West Asia. In his latest post on Truth Social about the escalating situation, Trump said that Iran and Israel should make a deal, adding that he would get the two to cease hostilities, just like he got India and Pakistan following Operation Sindoor. However, India has consistently denied such claims, saying that the ceasefire was reached through bilateral talks between New Delhi and Islamabad. Talking to reporters while leaving for the G7 summit in Canada on Sunday, Trump said that he hopes Israel and Iran can broker a deal, adding that sometimes the countries have to fight it out first. Listen in.
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Trump also said that the U.S. will continue to support the defense of Israel, but declined to say if he asked the U.S. ally to pause strikes on Iran. For his part, President Trump was insisting that Washington, a staunch ally of Israel, had nothing to do with Israel's bombing campaign. However, he also issued a stern warning, threatening to unleash the full strength and might of the U.S. military if Iran were to attack Washington's interests in any way, shape, or form. Now, President Trump also said that the United States is not, at this moment, involved in the military action, but left the door open, saying it was possible that the U.S. could get involved. Trump also stated that he would be open to Russian President Vladimir Putin mediating to resolve the conflict. Amid rising tensions between Washington's close ally Israel and Tehran, the next round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks has been cancelled. Now, as per media reports, Iran told Qatar and Oman that it was not open to negotiating a ceasefire while it was still under Israeli attack. As the tensions between Iran and Israel reach a new high, the fate of U.S.-Iran nuclear deal hangs in the balance. And now, Glenn, coming back to you, what were the primary factors influencing President Trump's decision to veto Israel's plan to assassinate Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? And how does this reflect on U.S. foreign policy priorities in the Middle East?
Well, I guess it remains to be found out if this is true, what President Trump is claiming. If it is true, then it would probably be caused by a concern about too radical of an escalation, that is to begin to assassinate state leaders in such a way. On the other hand, it could simply be Trump trying to present himself as a mediator and a negotiator. Again, this is not that different from what he does in the war, in the proxy war against Russia. That is the United States is deeply involved in terms of weapons, logistics, and intelligence, yet he likes to pretend as if the United States is this mediator standing on the side trying to negotiate, whilst at the same time they obviously had involvement in attacks on Russia's nuclear bombers. So you see something similar happening here with Iran, that he would like to present himself as almost neutral on the side. So this could be one of those efforts to gain some legitimacy, because America's position as a negotiator has been severely damaged. Not only did they launch this attack in the middle of negotiations, but we also find that a lot of the attacks within Iran on the killing of nuclear scientists, the specific targets they chose, a lot of this comes from the arms control deals. That is, the IAEA is suspected of handing over a lot of information to Israel. So in other words, the transparency which is required for arms control to work has been exploited, and the United States is not seen anymore as a very reliable negotiator. So this could be a way of Trump buying himself some legitimacy as a negotiator, as you just said. With he also took credit for ending the conflict now between India and Pakistan. So he tends to overplay his own role, I think.
Right. And how might this decision impact the strategic dynamics between the US, Israel, and Iran, particularly concerning deterrence and alliance trust, and of course the broader geopolitical balance in the region?
Well, I think a huge thing which has been shattered is Israel's deterrence, because as a relatively small country in the region, it's largely dependent on deterrent. That is, to have this reputation of the Iron Dome. No one can harm Israel. If anyone tries to harm Israel, Israel will inflict immense destruction on its opponents. So this also with the United States in its back. So this powerful deterrent has allowed Israel to act in a manner which it otherwise would not be able to act. And I think a lot of this has been damaged. The Israel now unleashed what it had against Iran. Iran was able to absorb the pain, and now is bombing Israeli cities. So a lot of the deterrent has now, and the image of Israel has been severely weakened. So this is very deeply problematic for the Israelis. So for the Israelis now to accept a ceasefire and say, well, perhaps this was a mistake, they're not gonna leave with what they came into this war with. So this is going to shift, perceptions, which means a lot in this region, and the entire balance of power, can be shifted, and this is not great for Israel. However, it is the wider trend in the international system as we move away from the hegemonic system to multipolarity. The reason why Israel hasn't had to make any concessions, any peace agreements over the past 30 plus years is because there's been one center of power, the United States, and it has never had to make any concessions. We see now a very different world emerging, and Israel should make concessions now if it's going to be in a weaker position tomorrow. So I think a lot of changes will happen. But that being said, Israel might see this as a reason to escalate dramatically, which is why there's reasonable concern, as Israel has nuclear weapons, and it has a lot to lose if it becomes humiliated in this failed attack on Iran.
Thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Spotlight and for your valued insights and analysis there.
Oh, my pleasure.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube: English,
$36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
geschäftsführenden Direktor
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka-charge mo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
4兆ドル以上も。
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.